Live. Hello, I'm Howard Mann, creator of Conscious Shifting, and welcome to Conscious Shifting. Before we get started, a quick warning and disclaimer: conscious shifting and all known side effects will improve your physical, mental, and spiritual health while providing the ideal environment for spiritual awakening, helping you live the life of your dreams and influence the world in a positive way. So if that's something that interests you, then follow us on Facebook or subscribe on YouTube, and then join us here Wednesday nights, 6 p.m. California time for Conscious Shifting. The best way to communicate with us is through our daily thought-provoking posts during a live or a replay of the live. Simply place your question in the comment box and we will answer it from a spiritual perspective to the benefit of everybody. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and get started. Everybody take a deep breath way down to the lower energy center, just below the belly button. And then as you exhale, release all tension. Hi, Susan. Another big deep breath. And relax. Hi, Kim. And one more time, big deep breath. And relax. Hi, Kathy. All right, everybody feeling good? I hope so. Tonight's topic is 3 things only spiritual people understand. All right, and Susan, if you have moved, hey Ray, how's it going? If you've moved in the last year, let me know. Otherwise, tomorrow I'll be sending your copy of the book out. In fact, for those of you that haven't seen it, that is it. They are in. Woohoo! The Art of Conscious Shifting, Awakening the Healer Within. All right, so let's get on with it. 3 things only spiritual people understand. Do you struggle to live a happy life? Are you stressed out a lot of the time? Does life seem chaotic? These are common problems, but they don't need to be. Have you ever noticed how some people are almost always calm and content? Their general state's one of happiness no matter what's going on, and that life just seems to work in their favor. Without spirituality, life can range from a bumpy ride to a complete train wreck. And with spirituality, life is peaceful and beautiful. It's not that you don't deal with life. I mean, you are living a physical life, but the overall state is one of peace and beauty. The knowledge and actions of spiritual people can be explained by the following 3 points, which is why we're going to discuss them tonight. Number 1, spiritual reality is not what most people think. People in the world are predominantly preoccupied with the physical. One way or another, we tend to chase physical prizes. And while our priorities may vary, we all enjoy gratification. We long for a sense of accomplishment. For most, financial gain is part of the equation. Many strive to be the very best at something. Some search for answers to life and the universe and everything. And then there are those who help others. And the grand prize can be all of them. There's nothing wrong with physical success. In fact, it's necessary to truly master spirituality. However, the answers to our deepest questions are not found in physical reality. The answers we seek are found in spiritual reality, at least the most profound questions. So it seems natural to focus on the physical because we live in a physical world and we even inhabit a physical body. Still, physical success without a spiritual perspective will always fall short. That's why you see sometimes people that no matter how much success they have, no matter how much wealth they accumulate, no matter how much fame they get, they're unhappy. So it boils down to when we begin to question our existence, then physical reality becomes problematic. Not so much with the how, but the why. Peace is only found in spiritual truth. That's why when we preoccupy ourselves with chasing physical prizes, so to speak, it doesn't really bring happiness. It doesn't bring peace. It's not necessarily bad, but it doesn't bring happiness or peace. Now, there's three sources for information to help with this higher understanding. One is others. So you can look to others that are close to you, who you respect, your friends and family perhaps, but have any of them mastered spirituality? Next, there are endless teachers and experts in every subject. And you could pick one or more of them and then hope that they have it right. But how often are the news headlines about experts being shocked by the fill in the blank? All the time, right? I mean, that's pretty much the standard news broadcast. So you have all these experts that are constantly being shocked by outcomes and results. And when they finally find the truth, oh my God, we had no idea. Well, following them is probably not such a great idea either, then, is it? If not others, then what about self? But which self? The self falsely identified with the current physical situation? The self that's based in thoughts and emotions? The mind body? That is the very same self who is searching for answers in the first place. So, what other self is there? Spirit. If not physical, then spirit. A spiritual source for spiritual answers. Who could argue with that? Spirituality is recognizing that you are a spiritual being and then living as your spiritual self while in a physical body. But if you're in a physical mind body and you're living in a physical world, then how do you know spirit? How exactly do you recognize spirit from the mind body? Hi, Tina. And that brings us to number 2. Spiritual guidance is all around us. So you can take a few deep breaths and relax, as we do all the time here, because recognizing spirit is not as difficult as you might think. You can start by being open to it. That's a great place to start, because whatever you deny, you create blocks to discovering. And when you're open to the possibility, then you might be surprised. Secondly, you can look in all the right places. So where do you look for spiritual evidence and spiritual truth? Everywhere. It's all around us. It always has been. The physical is a manifestation of the spiritual, conscious energy expressing itself as matter. So in the beginning, your understanding is usually through thought. And thinking is an intellectual pursuit. The intellect has to do with your brain. It's part of your body, the physical world. And intellectual understanding is a good start. However, at some point you need to make the jump from physical thinking to spiritual knowledge. It's a big jump. So how do you differentiate between thinking and knowledge? Well, we could spend all night on that one, and we'll do other lives on exactly that topic. In fact, Kim, if you would write that down for me, the difference between, how do you differentiate between thinking and spiritual knowledge? For one thing, you'll resonate with spiritual knowledge because you recognize it on some level. You might not quite understand it, but there's something familiar and comforting about it. You recognize it as truth that you've always known, but somehow you forgot. Hi, Anna. Hi, Christina. And you can use this recognition as a guide to conscious energy or spirit. Your eyes respond to light, your ears respond to sound, and your soul responds to spirit. So conscious energy will resonate with conscious energy. You're in a physical body, so there'll also be a physical response, a kind of an attraction that leads you home. Hi, Nellie. So think of it as a scale. Here's another way you can you can kind of help yourself until you start getting the hang of it. Think of a scale. On one end, you have lower consciousness, and on the other end, you have higher consciousness. Lower consciousness is more physical, while higher consciousness is more spirit. Hey, Stan, how's it going? On the low end are what you would call negative emotions. And on the high end are what you would refer to as positive emotions. So the more negative, the lower the consciousness. The more positive, the higher the consciousness. So if you, for example, feel fear or anger, then you're at the low end. You're dealing with the physical. Conversely, if you feel love and compassion, then you're on the high end. You're dealing with spirit. And that guide will really help narrow things down for you. Eventually, you won't need it. You'll just know. But in the beginning, that'll help, and it'll help a lot. And you can use this guide until you know through experience what it is that you're dealing with. And then there may be times of confusion, and you can simply check your response. Is it negative or positive? Because the more positively you're resonating, the higher the consciousness that you're dealing with. But I'll give you, hi, Tammy. Hi, Gil. But I'll give you one additional note about that. And that is that although higher consciousness can be described as love, it's not physical love. It's not an emotion. It's beyond judgment, either negative or positive. It's just simply unconditional love. So that is spiritual consciousness. So although you can use that scale and you'll recognize the negative from the positive, when you start to transcend into actual spiritual knowledge or truth, and it's from this inner knowledge that you already have, when you're really truly resonating with spirit and recognizing it, it'll be more along the lines of this unconditional love, not so much even positive. It's even above that. That's still, I mean, positive is better than negative. Love, compassion, kindness, far better than fear, anger, hatred, violence. All right, but it's still the world of duality. It's still the physical realm. It's still a viewpoint of separation and judgment and opinion, whereas spiritual consciousness is beyond all of that. So just tuck that away somewhere, so because I don't want people to get over identified with positive emotions and just seek that all the time and think that that's the end of the road, because that's like the first stepping stone. It goes way further than that. Hey, Chris, how's it going? Way further. And number 3, spiritual amnesia is the cause of human suffering. So, and we'll do multiple lives on this because it gets into all kinds of other stuff. Ego, the dark night of the soul, this kind of stuff. But spiritual amnesia is a term that refers to all of those things being possible because you've forgotten who and what you are. Hence the term spiritual amnesia. Because if you were recognizing who and what you are, none of that would be possible. I'll tell you this right now. When you're holding spiritual presence, it is impossible to, fully 100% spiritual presence. It is impossible to have any kind of an emotion or thought. You might recognize it as something the body's doing, but it doesn't really register as much of anything. It's just mind-body phenomenon. It's like there's the mountains and there's the oceans and there's the clouds in the sky and look at the butterfly landing on the flower and there's a thought and there's an emotion. It's not it doesn't rise to the same thing. In one instance you could say yes, I'm one with everything, but what I'm referring to is that this spiritual amnesia, not knowing who and what you are, makes all of that other stuff possible. You would not, for example, be able to be angry with somebody, no matter what they did. And I'm not making excuses for inappropriate or hurtful behavior. I'm not saying we should condone evil. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do something about it or protect the innocent. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is that you would not be angry about the situation because you would recognize what the source of it is. It's spiritual unconsciousness and pain being projected by this other person. So if you're really holding spiritual presence, you would not be able to have negative emotions or thoughts towards somebody else. There would be no hatred. There would be no anger. There would be no revenge. There would be none of the stuff that goes on in this world. That's all because of spiritual amnesia. It's identification with the ego. It's egotism. It's a viewpoint of separation. And that maybe some night we'll get into that as the fall from grace, because that's what it was when we bought into this whole idea that separation had occurred. Right on. Gil says, people who hurt others are hurt themselves. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It's the pain that's being projected. They may not see it that way. They may think that that person is a bad person, and that's why they're saying or doing what they're doing, but that's really not what's going on. Deep within themselves, there's something that they need to work on. They need to process. They have some trauma of some sort or some false belief that they're operating under. And until they resolve that issue, they're not going to rise in consciousness. That is a spiritual block. It will prevent their own spiritual evolution. So spiritual amnesia causes human suffering. It is the underlying reason for all of the problems that exist in the world. Gil says the defense mechanism of the ego. Yes, exactly. Exactly. And once you learn to recognize spiritual truth, things start to fall into place. It's a journey of stepping stones leading you home. And as you witness the results, then your trust in spirit becomes stronger. And eventually, you'll learn to know spirit. You'll just know. You won't need to think in terms of where does it fit on the scale, or you'll just know. Because you'll become it. Well, you already are it. That's the truth. But you'll realize it. You'll realize it. So there'll be nothing to think about. You are what you are, and you'll project accordingly. This spiritual amnesia causes us to project lower version of ourselves, damaged version of ourselves. And that's why we see what we see in the world. So the spiritual awareness provides mental clarity. You simply see through the nonsense to the truth. It's not a matter of judging it as good and bad or anything like that. It just, you just literally see through the nonsense to the truth. You know, it's like, it's not even so much of pity, like, oh, those poor unfortunate souls, because that's still, I mean, it's maybe, you know, accurate, but it's still from the ego. I mean, because you're looking down on someone else. Oh, those poor unfortunate souls, sucks for them. But you know, hey, I'm up here. That's still that's still ego. I think Jesus summed it up best when he said, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." That is true understanding. Susan, I am at the same address, Howard. Oh, excellent. Yeah, you should have it. I would guess if it goes out tomorrow, what's tomorrow? Thursday, Friday, Saturday, probably Monday at the latest, I would think. And Kim says, just because you are hurt doesn't mean you are right to hurt. Yes, just because you're hurt doesn't mean you're right. It's a hard truth. Yeah, that's it. And in truth, excellent, Gil. I'm glad to hear it. In truth, when you're hurt, what that is an indication that within you, there's something that's damaged. There's something you've identified with a falsehood, or there's some emotional trauma, something that's happened somewhere along your journey, and you're actually being triggered by this other person. In other words, your pain is resonating with their pain. And so you get hurt or offended, but it's not because of them. They're reminding you of the hurt that you have within. But so often people, they don't realize that that's where the word triggered comes from, because you know, and they attack, you know, verbally or whatever, or you know, throw off some bad vibes, or you know, something. But it's not really, has nothing to do with the other person. They're just reminding you of what you have within that needs to heal. And so your pain is resonating with their pain. Where you really want to be is your soul resonating with their soul. So there's this spiritual connection. You see the difference? That's why I call it the fall from grace, because it's a belief that that connection doesn't exist, and that there's something less than spirit, which is impossible, any more than it's impossible for you to be something less than spirit. You can believe it, and you can live accordingly, and you can do a lot of damage. That's what this world is all about in its current state of consciousness. But that doesn't make it so. It's just a false belief. So the thing is, you want your soul to resonate with their soul. You don't want your pain to resonate with their pain. I mean, it's okay for healing purposes, as long as you understand that's what's going on, and like, oh wow, okay, let's go inward and take care of that. Exactly. They react rather than respond, Kim says. Misperceptions are painful. They are. And they misperceptions are misleading. They send you down the wrong path, because as long as you think that the problem is out there, then you're never going to solve it. But that's not where the reason is, because that's not where the problem is. The problem isn't here. I mean, yes, they have some pain that needs to be resolved, but that's not why you're feeling the way you are. You're feeling the way you are because you have pain that needs to be resolved. And that's never going to be resolved looking outside yourself, because that's not where it exists. Thank you, Gil. I try. I really do. Actually, it's not me. It's spirit doing the talking here. I'm just the vehicle. That's all. The messenger. Chris says that knowing that everyone has their own journey and that we are all here to remember the truths that we forgot when we came here really makes you see others in the best way. It does. You start to see them the way, not that I want to personalize God, but you start to see them the way God sees them. You start to see them as Spirit sees them. You start to see them for what they are. You start to see the truth. Yes. React versus respond. Maybe we could do a live on that one, because that would be a great tool to put in your toolbox as well. Gil says no thinking time, react just based on emotion. Yes, thinking is response. That's right. And then they're right in there. You're calling out ego. Ego is a primitive part of the brain. It's the subconscious, and it's totally reactionary. You're not in there. It's programs that exist in the subconscious, and so it's a survival mechanism. In an emergency, you don't have time to think, so you have to have some means of surviving the emergency, and hopefully you have some programs within you that either you can fight, you're trained, or you can escape. Fight or flight syndrome. That's in the ego. There's no thinking involved. It's reactionary. But see, you've nailed it, because so are the emotions. Those are being thrown up from these programs. Whereas in the conscious part of the brain, we can analyze things. But that wouldn't do us much good in an emergency. While we're sitting there thinking about what we're supposed to do, we'd get wiped out. So it's necessary but problematic if we don't recognize what's what and when what is doing the thinking and not, because they're not really lifetime thoughts and analysis. In fact, we could even complicate that further, just to give you an idea of where we could go with this. You have programs in the subconscious, some way you've learned to deal with something. Almost like a computer, when a certain button is pushed, you get a certain response. It matches stored information with a command. Same way if you sense danger outside, it sends a command down into your subconscious and it initiates a stress response. And all these programs come up and you start reacting, not thinking, reacting, as opposed to analyzing the situation with the intellect, which is a higher part of the brain, the thinking. But it's still based in memory, isn't it? The subconscious and the conscious work simultaneously. And so your reference to what you're thinking is based on what you've learned in the past, which is all memories, isn't it? So maybe some night we'll get into that. That one gets really deep, really fast. But the point is, let spirit guide you, and you don't have anything to worry about. That's the bottom line. Exactly, Chris and Gil. Yes, yeah. I mean, if you're in danger, then fine. You need to survive. I mean, you can't if you don't survive, then you're not going to be able to continue your journey, and the good that you came here to do, you're not going to be able to do. So it's important that you do what you can to extend your life, to give you as much time as possible to do as much spiritual work as you can. That's why you're here, and to help others with what you've learned. But it's not you don't want to spend your entire life in survival mode. That's a recipe for cancer and getting into all kinds of trouble because of aggression and negativity. And it says, so true, really deep, really fast. Yes. Yes. So there's different levels of consciousness we could discuss. What I'm suggesting is that you go all the way, and that is into your full realization of who and what you are, which is spirit. And if you do that, there's no judgments, there's no opinions, there's no good, bad, positive, negative. Spirit is what it is. So you literally rise above the world of duality. You don't see things in terms of separation and judgments like right and wrong. You don't see things in terms of separation. You just see spiritual energy and the interaction within that spiritual energy. And you literally transcend the physical world. You literally transcend the world of duality. You transcend the ego. You transcend karma. Because you're not at that point doing you're full spirit. There's nothing that's generating any karma. There's no consequences to actions as a self, because there's no self-identity other than supreme consciousness that we're all a part of. There's not this egotistical I'm me and you're you, and I need to find a way to get your $5. Spirit doesn't roll that way. It just doesn't. And it's possible to live in the physical world from a spiritual perspective, so that you still play the game of life. You might still run a business, but you treat people as fellow souls. You don't treat them as opportunities to get into this egotistical, predatory game. So it's a whole different way of doing things, and it's called spiritual mastery. That's what it is. When you are self-realized, no matter, and it wouldn't matter if you were here or on Mars or in some different universe or in some different time, in some different incarnation, it would make no difference. When you're able to self-realize in total, then that's spiritual mastery, and it doesn't matter where or when you are, you're just spirit. In fact, at that time, you would be everywhere all the time anyway, or at least aware of it. Even if you were partially inhabiting a physical body here, you would still have some awareness of what's going on everywhere else, because you are everywhere else. Because spirit is, again, not based in the physical world, not based in time. Another live, but we keep doing that, or I keep doing that, but it's just I do that because it makes it interesting, and it plants seeds. It gives you food for thought. But at least in the beginning, these guides that I've been talking about tonight, these ways to recognize one from the other, will point you in the right direction. Later on, we'll be able to deal with these more complex levels of consciousness without getting too distracted or melt down mentally, because the mind is prepared for it. But we're getting there. We're getting there. A lot of you guys and gals, a lot of you fellow souls are getting there. I can tell by the comments. I know. And truth be told, any spiritual message is going to be received by everybody. It might not be the same way. Spirit's multidimensional. So you might have, if you could picture however many levels of consciousness you want, a spiritual message, somebody on each one of those levels would still get something out of the message. But some of you, I know, I can feel it, or like, oh, you're getting what I'm saying, and It's out there type of stuff. Gil says, two people communicating with reaction. This is where anger becomes. Yes, exactly. Just one trigger in the other, and then the other trigger in the other, and pretty soon you got a fight going on. Over what? Over miscommunication. Basically, when you get down to it. Chris, I would love to hear you talk about our junk DNA one night, which we know are gifts and powers that we haven't aligned with yet. Okay. All right. All right. Yeah, I'm trying to make a list as we do these lives of things that come up and use that as topics for future lives. But I have to kind of pick one thing, and I can go a little bit off the sidelines. But if I don't kind of stick to one thing, then it might be too confusing, and all of a sudden a 1 hour live is 3 weeks later we're still here talking about it. Plus, it's just a lot of information. Sometimes it's overwhelming for people, so it's better to get it in little bites and then go back to it and go, okay, now, you know, we brought this up before. Let's go a little further down that road, you know. Gil says makes sense with being calm response. Yeah, you're far more intelligent when you're calm. It's just a matter of fact. And the only way to do that is to remain present. You know, as soon as you drop down into the ego, it's all reactionary. And all hell is most likely going to break loose, especially if it hasn't all been cleaned up. And for most of us, it hasn't all been cleaned up, or we wouldn't be here. You know, that's part of what we're doing here. Kim says the power of the pause helps to respond rather than react. Just take a deep breath. That's it. Deep breaths. All right, Gil. Good night. Tammy says we're responsible for our own response. Indeed. I got it, Chris. All right, so back to the third point of the night, and that is that spiritual amnesia causes human suffering. So once you learn to recognize spiritual truth, things just start falling into place. And when you look back on it, you'll see that. It might not always seem that way in the moment, especially in the beginning. But when you look back, you'll see that. And you'll see it as a journey. That's why we call it a spiritual journey. It's not really a path. It's not a journey to a destination somewhere, sometime. But it is a journey in the sense of the way we experience it. So it's very much like a journey, a pathway of stepping stones that lead us home. And as you begin to witness the results, then the natural thing that comes from that is that your trust in spirit becomes stronger, eventually to where you will just understand that there's nothing to trust or believe in this world. Spirit is it, beginning and end. I am the Alpha and the Omega. Very, very, very deep when you really understand that one, because there is nothing else. Everything else is an illusion. It doesn't even exist. So awareness is important, Tammy. Spiritual awareness provides that mental clarity, and that's calm. That calmness comes from the stillness, the mental clarity. It's all connected and all interdependent. And as consciousness shifts higher and higher, major realizations occur, unlocking the secret to living a spiritual life. Only secret because we've been so conditioned to believe so differently. We've been brainwashed. It's been pounded into us for generations. You know, these corrupted programs have been downloaded into the subconscious of young people, and they grow up not realizing that they've been brainwashed. And so the world collective consciousness is one of falsehood, which explains a lot, doesn't it? But the thing is that you need not search for a spiritual experience. This is something that the spiritual community and people in the spiritual community often misunderstand. It's like, oh, I'm looking for a spiritual life. I'm looking for a spiritual experience. You're a spiritual being. So this is a spiritual experience. It does. All of it is a spiritual experience. You're not capable of anything else. You also happen to be temporarily in the human condition, a physical condition wherein you find yourself traveling through time and space in a human body, a mind body, as I refer to it. So most people in the human condition suffer from spiritual amnesia, and spiritual amnesia is the cause of their suffering. Chris says that unlearning things that we've been taught is one of the most important things we can do. Exactly. And when your viewpoint shifts from that of a physical creature to that of a spiritual being expressing itself through a mind body into the physical world, then you begin to live a spiritual life. As I often say, human being. The human being, the physical part, the being the spiritual part. But going deeper still, then we begin to realize with that our common source. In essence, we're individualized streams of consciousness, but emanating from a common source. We're still connected to it, and collectively we make it up, all of us combined. That is what supreme consciousness is. So it's like a ray of light shooting out from the sun. It seems like it's a separate light of ray. We could talk about it that way, but it's really part of the sun, and it's emanating from the sun, as are all of the rays of light emanating from the sun. And so a soul is to God or supreme consciousness what a ray of light is to the sun. I make it easier to understand. And rather we call it individualized streams of consciousness emanating from supreme consciousness, or we call it souls created from God, really doesn't make any difference, because ultimately we're one. It's the same thing. We're back to that one thing. And this realization, the oneness of it all, the spiritual connection of it all, changes the way we look at others as well as God, doesn't it? Thank you, Tina. Hi, Sue. Awesome. Sue's University of Life in the house. New Zealand, too. I still want to travel there at some point. We'll come down and have a cup of tea. Yeah, they're living tomorrow. Talk about the illusion of time. She's alive right now, but in New Zealand, it's tomorrow. How's that? Like I said, this is all an illusion. Susan, definitely getting there. Trauma is a journey in itself. Yes, we have to have our boundaries. Removing toxic people has helped. Didn't like how it made me feel. Yeah, you know what? When you surround yourself by people that are more spiritually minded, when you become more spiritually minded yourself, it feels a lot better. I mean, it really does. It's not the reason why we do it, but but it's definitely one of the perks. Let's put it that way. Chris says she's in our future. Exactly. We're projecting into the future. Back to the future. Talking to Sue in New Zealand live. Oh, that's great. But God consciousness or oneness consciousness, however you want to look at that, it dissolves the root of mankind's problems. All negative thoughts and actions are based in this belief of separation. And because we're part of supreme consciousness, we have knowledge of it. It's simply a matter of allowing it to emerge, getting out of the way and letting it flow through us into this world, flow through this mind body, this temporary vehicle that we're traveling around the time-space continuum in. The thing is that since spiritual knowledge is always for the greater good, you get that, right? Because spirit is oneness. And so by definition, then spirit is for the greater good being everyone. And since spiritual knowledge is always for the greater good, it also happens to always be best if we want to get into judgments. Kind of slumming it a little bit there, sliding in underneath the higher level of consciousness. But if we want to get into what's good, bad, or best, then what would be for the greater good would be best, right? I mean, it helps everyone. How could it not be the best? So spiritual knowledge is always available and always best. However, we are individualized, having free will, and therefore spirituality is a choice, which is what makes when we choose the greater good valuable. If we didn't have free will, it wouldn't be worth anything. The value in the greater good is not because we do something for the greater good. The value is that out of all the choices we have, we choose the greater good. You see the difference? And we do that when we become it. And that's that self-realization that I'm talking about, allowing spirit to flow through, allowing your soul, your spiritual essence to flow through the mind body and into the physical world, so that we literally bring heaven to earth. We bridge the gap in consciousness. We become that bridge when we're spiritually minded. All right, Tammy, I'll see you later. So when you choose to focus on the physical aspects of life, you can create a lot of confusion, and unknowingly you can also create a lot of pain. Ignoring spiritual truth is the cause of your suffering. By denying who and what you are, you shift your viewpoint to that of a false self. You then live a false reality, a reality of separation. When you choose spirituality, you bridge the gap in consciousness. And there's a direct correlation between spirituality and peace. To put it another way, the primary goal of spiritual people is the greater good. Consequently, they are in alignment with the universe. There's a natural order here. There's harmony if you just look for it. The sun and the moon don't fight each other. There's solar cycles and there's lunar cycles. The ebb and flow of the oceans coming in and going back out, they don't fight each other. It's just a natural cycle. So there's all this harmony that exists because spirit is manifesting as the physical realm in order to provide us a means of expressing ourselves spiritually. But in order to do that, we have to maintain who and what we are. We have to maintain our spiritual presence. When we forget, spiritual amnesia, and we identify with the physical world, that's when everything goes crazy. And the funny thing about it is, the whole point of coming here was to express ourselves spiritually. The whole point of creating all of this was so that we would be able to express ourselves spiritually in the physical realm. But when we identify with the physical realm, we're actually creating blocks to expressing ourselves spiritually. So we're defeating the whole point of all of this by, forgetting who and what we are. That's one reason why it's so important. But negative thoughts are the manifestation of a belief system in which we believe that we are separate from God and from each other. Chris says there's people here in this group that I haven't actually met, but I know on a soul level. That's complete proof that we're all one. Indeed. And so we bridge that gap in consciousness, and then we connect, even though we may be in different. Sue's down in New Zealand. I know she feels me right now, and I feel her, and we've had this for a long time. Ever since we met, it was this instant connection that we had. It's on a soul level, so we can do that when we drop this egotistical crap. In negative thoughts are the manifestation of a belief system in which we believe that we're separate from each other and from God. That's critical to understand, because negative thoughts are responsible for every problem known to man. So you could boil it all down to just that. When we believe that we're separate from God and each other, we create the evil that exists in the world. It's not some horned beast that's, doing all this. It's us. There are dark forces, but we create them. And so, then you start feeling that life is a struggle, that there's all this unhappiness, and it becomes stressful and chaotic. See, there's that mental clarity I was talking about with spiritual knowledge goes right out the window. But when you find yourself feeling that way, when you feel that you're struggling, when you feel that there's unhappiness and that life is stressful and chaotic, ask yourself a question. In this moment, do I see myself as separate from others and from God? And I can almost guarantee that if you're honest, you're going to say, yeah, as a matter of fact, I do. You almost have to, because I feel life is a struggle. I feel that life is full of unhappiness. I feel that life is stressful and chaotic. Just seeing life as that way is separation. And so if the answer is yes, then you found your problem. Instead, you can have a spiritual life, and it's easier than you think. Spiritual guidance is always available. We're part of the infinite, and therefore we have knowledge of it. It's within us, and it always has been. And a false belief that we're separate physical creatures with no spiritual connection is responsible for the spiritual block. So we simply remove that block by shifting our viewpoint. You're a spiritual being, and deep within, you know it. How do you respond when I say that? When I say you are a spiritual being, and deep within, you know it. You're like, yeah, I don't know how I know that, but I know that. Even those of you that may hear this and aren't anywhere on this page of spiritual knowledge or spiritual awakening, you're just in the beginning stages. When I say that, you go, yeah, I don't know how I know that, but I've always known that. I don't really live it, and I kind of forget it most of the time, but I know that that's the truth. I feel it. I sense it. And it's beyond even that, because the senses are of the body. The thinking is of the brain. It's spiritual knowledge, which is what I've been talking about all night. But you know it. You know you're a spiritual being. On some level, you know it. And you may not understand it because you've been so brainwashed into believing something else, but you know it. You know it to be the truth. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to go to New Zealand. Awesome. Hi, Clyde. Ego creates separation. Exactly. Exactly. Well, we're happy you're here. Oh, that would be a great retreat, wouldn't it? Oh, it gets me thinking. So we just remove that block by shifting our viewpoint. But by just knowing that, you know what, I know, or if you can't accept that you're a spiritual being, accept the possibility. You're here. Do you doubt your own existence? Is it any more unlikely? I'll just go with the whole intellect. We'll just forget spirituality altogether. Let's just get right down to it. Let's say you're an atheist. Does your own existence, do you doubt that? Do you doubt that you're here? Probably not. If you do, we'd have to have a very long talk. But pinch yourself, you know. I could pinch you. You're here. You're here. So isn't it at least possible that there's something more than this? I mean, there's all this, and for all of this to be here, there had to have been a million miracles occur, a million or more things that are impossible scientifically had to happen in order for us to be here right now having this conversation. So it's really not much of a stretch, even on an intellectual level, that there's a possibility that there's something more than just this. Start there. Start there and just allow what then happens to happen. But by being open to it, you're removing the spiritual block and you're allowing yourself the opportunity to evolve. Nice. All right. So we remove that block by shifting our viewpoint and realizing that you're a spiritual being, or at least it's possible. I mean, even quantum physics says that there's this realm that energy also exists in, which is non-physical, meaning there's no time or space. And we could get into that some night, but that is the same definition as spirit, really. I mean, this realm where there's no form, there's just consciousness. Well, how could this energy, which by the way carries information, exist in a realm of non-form? How is that possible? Quantum physics says that that's something that they know to be the case. They don't really understand it, but they know it to be the case. And when that energy they don't use the word decides to, they say when the energy wave crashes, but that same energy then becomes energy in the particle form, which is what we perceive as physical matter. So it's the same definitions. It's just all you atheists, it's just I'm using different language, and I do it because I consider anything that's conscious without any form to be spirit. I'm not talking about Casper the ghost, and I'm not talking about God in the way most people for thousands of years have talked about God. But I am talking about a very real entity of which we are a part of. And what I'm saying is that quantum physics explains it scientifically, that spirit manifests as the physical universe and everything in it. So at least it's possible that spirit exists. Start there. That will unlock the door to the spiritual realm. And you always have a choice whether to accept or reject spirituality. When you choose a spiritual life, your life will become far more beautiful and far more peaceful. Connecting with your spiritual essence while in the physical body results in life working for you. All you have to do is let it happen. You don't really have to do anything. Things will take care of themselves. And finally, completely uniting your spirit with your physical form is a very high level of consciousness. These are people that we call spiritual masters. And mastering spirituality is something we will all do at some point in our spiritual journey, because we're all in this together. Actually, we are one. All right, so that's tonight's live. We need to move on to a healing circle because this is, as often happens here, we're running a little bit late. All right, Sherry, good night. Yes, Chris, spirituality and physics are really starting to merge. It's kind of like where physics ends, spirituality begins. But the two go hand in hand. And I think in the future, that's what you're going to see, is a realization of that. Sue says, so freeing to know everything you are saying. My mind is sometimes so chaotic, and seeing it and knowing it's not me. No. Whew. So good to be able to use breathing to get back to reconnect, loving energy of true essence. Indeed. All right. So for those of you that want to hang around for the healing circle, we'll do one. But that's it for the live tonight. Let me get this banner up. There we go. All right. And we'll do a little bit of something here. Part meditation, part guided, but something that you can use to help with this process. Get some iced tea in me. Okay, so gather around, join hands, forming a circle. Gently close your eyes and your mouth, breathing through the nose down to an area just below the belly button. And then exhale back out through the nose. And another deep breath way down into your lower abdomen. And then exhale back out through the nose, releasing all tension. And again, breathe in peace. And exhale tension. Let the physical world go for a while. Let the healing energy build and flow with each breath. Just continue breathing on your own, at your own pace, and let the relaxation come over you. You can follow the breath, move deeper into the body. And then something you can do to help with discovering this energy that I talk about, your chi, your life force, is as you inhale, visualize pulling that energy from the base of your spine up into the skull. And then as you exhale, let that energy flow down the front of your spine. This is actually a real thing. But by visualizing it, you may develop an awareness of it. Again, as you inhale, pull the energy from the base of your spine up into your skull. And as you relax, let that energy flow back down the front of your spine. And one more time, as you inhale, pull the energy up the back of your spine all the way to the skull. And as you exhale, allow it to flow down the front of the spine. So you allow the energy to flow in and out to all parts of your body, because it moves up and down your spine and then goes out your nervous system to every cell in your body, 100 trillion of them by some estimates. And then there's that communication going back the other way. This is also a real thing. And scientists are able to watch this occur. So allow the energy to flow in and out of all parts of your body, up and down the spine, and tying it to the breath. You harmonize all of this. You balance it out. And this will create a healthy state of being. You allow your energy and breath to ebb and flow in harmony. That's what you're doing. Breathe in from all parts of your body, up the back of your spine into your skull. Exhale down the front of your spine and back out to all parts of your body. And again, you breathe in from all parts of your body, up the back of your spine to your skull. Exhale down the front of your spine and out to all parts of your body. And one more time, breathe in from all parts of your body, up the back of the spine to the skull. Exhale, going down the front of the spine and out to all parts of your body. Breathe energy beyond your body, out into the healing circle. Breathe and connect with the energy of all the others in the healing circle, because it's the same breath and it's the same energy. So breathe in from all parts of the healing circle through your body, up the back of your spine, and then as you exhale down the front of your spine, back out your body into the healing circle. And again, breathe in from the healing circle through your body, up the back of your spine, over the top of your skull, back down the front of your spine as you exhale, back out through your body and into the healing circle. And one more time, breathe in from the healing circle through your body, up the back of the spine to the skull, and exhale down the front of the spine to all parts of your body, out to all parts of the healing circle. Now breathe energy out beyond the healing circle, out to the entire planet. Breathe and connect with the energy of all others on our planet, because it's the same breath and the same energy. Breathe in from planet Earth and all the beings on it, through the healing circle, through your body, up the back of the spine to your skull. And as you exhale, let it flow down the front of your spine, out all parts of your body, into the healing circle, and out to all parts of the planet. And again, breathing in from the people of Earth, the animals of Earth, the planet itself, through the healing circle, through your body, up the back of the spine to your skull. Exhale down the front of your spine, out your body, the healing circle, out to the planet and all the people of Earth. And one more time, breathing in from the people of Earth, the animals of Earth, the planet Earth, through the healing circle, through your body, up the back of the spine, into the skull. And then as you exhale, let it flow down the front of your spine, out your body, into the healing circle, into the planet, and into all the people of Earth. So we breathe and connect with all the energy of the planet, all the people of the planet. We're all one. It's the same breath. It's the same energy. So let's sit with that about a minute, and then we'll finish. Okay. So hopefully you were able to feel the connection. And if not, I'm sure you're aware of something's different about all of this. And I can guarantee you that you're in a much calmer, healthier state of being at the moment. But this connection, this is how you do it in meditation. And then you just sit and you experience that connection, that shared consciousness with all that is. It's the same breath, the same energy, and the same consciousness. And you can You can use it as a breathing technique. You can breathe it in and then breathe it out. And like the tide flowing in and out, gently harmonizing the cycles of the breath with all that exists. Because there is no separation. There is only the illusion of separation and the reality of God or supreme consciousness. And so it is. All right, slowly open your eyes. And there we go. All right, so hopefully you found that useful and you can incorporate it in your meditation. If you don't currently meditate, do something like that. Even a minute or 2 or 5 a day, start with that. You'll know when to add a few minutes on. See if you can work up to at least 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes a day. Try and do it at the same time to remind yourself, because it's extremely healthy physically and mentally, but also spiritually. Thank you, Chris. Hi, Tracy. Nice. Thank you, Sue. Kim's reminding everybody to drink a full glass of water. Stay hydrated when you're doing energy work. I honor the God within you. Remember, until the next time, the only way to bring about the greater good is to be the greater good. Good night.